Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled you're here for this important training, Maine Safe, Keeping Banking Safe for Older Mainers. This module is designed specifically for managers and supervisors at financial institutions across Maine. You play a vital role in protecting older adults from financial exploitation.
Absolutely, Jared. This training is part of a public private initiative that brings together state agencies and financial organizations to empower you with the tools and knowledge to prevent and report financial abuse. Let's get started. This training was originally developed in 2014 and has evolved into a virtual on demand resource. It's a collaboration between DHHS, the Bureau of Financial Institutions, the Office of Securities, the Maine Bankers Association, the Maine Credit Union League, and Legal Services for Maine Elders.
It focuses on the potential financial exploitation of older adults and how financial institutions like yours can intervene effectively. We'll be guiding you through this together. I'm Jared Gay, Director of Advocacy and Compliance at the Maine Credit Union League.
And I'm Amelia Gilliam, Insurance Programs Assistant at the Maine Bankers Association. We'll be tossing the ball back and forth throughout this presentation, so keep an ear out for those transitions. We're excited to be your guides.
The overarching goal is simple but powerful: to detect and prevent financial exploitation before assets are lost.
We'll do that by educating staff, clarifying your role in reporting, and preparing you to respond to suspicious activity. This is where managers and supervisors make a real difference. This training is part of a three-part series: AARP's Bank Safe for Frontline Staff, Main Safe Module 1 for Frontline Staff, and this module, Module 2 for Managers and Supervisors, which focuses on regulatory considerations.
We encourage you to view all three parts. They're designed to work together like puzzle pieces, each one strengthening your institution's ability to protect older Mainers. Now, let's talk about confidentiality laws. Yes, there are strong prohibitions against disclosing financial information, but there are also important exceptions that allow you to report suspected elder abuse.
Understanding these laws helps managers report confidently and consistently. The next section will walk through key state and federal rules, but remember, this is not legal advice. Always consult your legal department when needed.
My name is Chase, and I'm an attorney with the Maine Bureau of Financial Institutions. I'm going to speak about confidentiality laws and their exceptions, summarize resources, and provide background so you and your legal counsel can further explore ways to prevent financial exploitation. Please note that the material that follows is quite complex, and I thank you for your patience. This presentation does not constitute legal advice from the Bureau, and we recommend that you discuss the laws and programs that follow with a qualified attorney. Both Maine law and federal law generally prohibit the disclosure of customer information held by a financial institution. Maine law prohibits the disclosure of financial records, which are broadly defined as any originals or copies of records relating to a customer's relationship with their financial institution or credit union. A federal law, known as the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, or GLBA for short, prohibits the disclosure of non-public personal information, which is personally identifiable financial information provided by a consumer to a financial institution. Under that law, a financial institution may disclose such information only if they notify the customer and give them a chance to opt out of disclosure. There are exceptions to these confidentiality laws for the reporting of elder financial abuse. The Maine Banking Code allows for the disclosure of financial records in certain instances, such as to assist Maine Adult Protective Services in protecting dependent and incapacitated adults, to report suspected elder abuse to the Office of the Attorney General, or law enforcement when a disbursement may result in exploitation, and to the extent allowable under federal law. Specifically, disclosing confidential customer information under Maine law is allowed if it's being reported to Adult Protective Services when staff suspect that an incapacitated or dependent adult has been subject to abuse, neglect, or exploitation. An incapacitated or dependent adult is generally someone who is unable to make informed decisions and lacks the ability to meet daily self or healthcare needs. Abuse, neglect, or exploitation include things like the improper use of resources for another's profit, threats to health or welfare, or specifically financial exploitation, which is defined as the use of tactics like deception, intimidation, or force to obtain control over the property of an incapacitated or dependent adult for another's profit. And of course, for greater detail, I recommend reviewing the definitions in Title 22 of the Maine statutes. There are certain advantages to disclosing information under Maine law. Disclosure may cause Adult Protective Services to intervene in the situation, and the institution that disclosed the confidential information will be immune from civil or criminal liability for making the report. Of course, I recommend you also consult with your legal department for more information about these laws. In 2025, the Maine legislature enacted a new law aimed at preventing financial exploitation of vulnerable adults, adding new methods for financial institutions to help protect all individuals 65 and older, as well as those covered under the Adult Protective Services Act. The new law allows a customer to pre-designate a trusted contact who could be called upon for help if exploitation is suspected. The new law permits an institution to delay a disbursement if they believe that transaction may result in exploitation. The law allows a financial institution to report suspected exploitation to law enforcement and share relevant records to assist investigations. And lastly, the law grants immunity to a financial institution that discloses information under the law. Turning to the federal law, please note that federal financial regulators released guidance clarifying that reporting suspected financial abuse of older adults to the appropriate agencies does not generally violate the privacy provisions of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act that I mentioned earlier. Specifically, the guidance indicates that disclosure to local, state, or federal agencies for the purpose of reporting suspected financial abuse of older adults generally falls into at least one of the statutory exceptions within the Act. It also acknowledges that prompt reporting of suspected financial exploitation can lead to prevention, intervention, and other remedies for victims. And note that Maine law also allows for disclosure consistent with the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. And now I'm going to hand it over to Nicole to speak further about disclosure under the federal law.
Hello, my name is Nicole, and I'm the Consumer Outreach Specialist at the Maine Bureau of Financial Institutions. I'm going to talk to you about the disclosure and immunity for reporting financial exploitation. Please note that under the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, or GLBA, disclosure is always allowed with the consent of the consumer. However, if you don't have consent and want to disclose confidential information, you may be able to rely on certain exceptions in the guidance. Those exceptions include 1. To comply with federal, state, and local laws, such as the laws that require reporting of suspected abuse. 2. To respond to an investigation, subpoena, or summons. Continuing with exceptions, number 3, to prevent fraud, unauthorized transactions, claims, and other liability. Number 4, to the extent allowed under other provisions of law, including a disclosure to law enforcement agencies or disclosure for an investigation related to public safety. Beyond the GLBA, another federal law that provides protection is the Federal Senior SAFE Act. The Act grants immunity to individuals and financial institutions that disclose suspected exploitation of older adults to regulators, law enforcement, or state adult protective services, provided that the person is a supervisor or works in a compliance or legal capacity, has received the training required by statute, and made the disclosure in good faith and with reasonable care. In 2024, federal regulators released an interagency statement on elder financial exploitation. It includes resources to help financial institutions develop internal practices to prevent and respond to exploitation. The joint statement also lists resources for victims of financial exploitation, including the U.S. Department of Justice's National Elder Fraud Hotline and the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3. And finally, financial institutions can remind older adults that they can report suspected exploitation to the Federal Trade Commission, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, and the Social Security Administration.
Let's shift to internal protocols. Does your institution have a clear process for handling suspected financial exploitation?
If not, now's the time to build one. A strong protocol eliminates confusion, speeds up response time, and ensures the right people are taking action. If your institution doesn't yet have a protocol, don't worry. We're going to walk through a model protocol with actionable steps that you can adapt.
These steps are designed to be straightforward and easy to implement. Let's take a look. Frontline staff might be directed to report suspicious activity immediately to a manager. They may also take steps such as asking brief questions about the withdrawal, sharing an awareness document, activating surveillance if appropriate, following up with an internal auditor.
These actions help gather information and protect the customer, especially when something feels off.
If staff suspect coercion, they might separate the older adult from the third party, notify a colleague, or contact security.
These steps are critical in situations where someone may be pressuring or manipulating the customer. Once a report is made, managers and legal teams might interview staff and document the case, place holds on accounts, file suspicious activity reports, or report to agencies and advise customer service teams.
This is where your leadership really matters. You're not just responding, you're protecting.
Hello, I'm Jill Randall from Legal Services for Maine Elders, and we'll now focus on making external referrals to organizations that can provide additional help. In the first module, we shared resources and referral information to help victims of financial exploitation, and we built a referral sheet that outlines reporting and referral options. In these final slides, we'll describe those resources in more detail and include contact information so you know exactly where to turn. Once again, we're building our referral sheet of resources, some that can be contacted without the older adult's consent and others that require the older adult's consent. So without consent, Adult Protective Services and law enforcement are resources if the older adult is suspected of being incapacitated or dependent. If the older adult is not dependent or incapacitated, the Maine Office of Securities and law enforcement are resources. With consent, if there are concerns about financial exploitation, the Maine Office of Securities, Legal Services for Maine Elders, and law enforcement are resources. Helpful support services that can be contacted with consent include the local area agency on aging, the domestic violence hotline, and the sexual assault hotline.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gina Googins, and I am the Associate Director for the Office of Aging and Disability Services. If you have reason to believe that there has been abuse, neglect, or exploitation of an incapacitated or dependent adult, it should always be reported to Adult Protective Services at 1-800-624-8404. The APS intake line is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Your call will either be answered by a person or you'll have the opportunity to leave a voicemail message. To recap, an incapacitated adult is someone who is unable to receive and evaluate information or make or communicate informed decisions to such an extent that they lack the ability to meet essential requirements for physical, health, safety, or self-care, even with available technological assistance. A dependent adult is someone who has a physical or mental condition that substantially impairs their ability to adequately provide for their daily needs. This includes, but is not limited to, residents of nursing homes and assisted living facilities. In brief, here is what happens when a report is made to APS. APS receives a call through the APS Central Intake Line, which operates 24/7. Each call goes through a screening process to determine if it meets criteria for investigation. Reports that meet the criteria are sent to the district APS supervisor. After review, the report is either closed or sent to an APS caseworker for investigation. The caseworker may collaborate with law enforcement, case management agencies, and other partners. Once the investigation is complete, the caseworker determines whether there are findings or substantiations. A substantiation means APS found by preponderance of the evidence that an individual abused, neglected, or exploited an incapacitated or dependent adult. Because of confidentiality laws, you will likely not receive follow-up information on the outcome of the case.
I'm James Trask with the Maine Office of Securities. We regulate the securities industry in Maine, and we welcome consumer complaints and questions about investments, financial professionals, and securities laws. Our office assists with the investigation or referral of cases involving elder financial exploitation. We also educate older adults on how to spot red flags for financial fraud and exploitation and how to protect themselves. If you need us, our phone is 207-624-8551. Our website is www.investors.maine.gov. If an incident does not involve a security, we will refer it to the appropriate federal or state agency. Depending on the facts, referrals may include Adult Protective Services, Maine Office of the Attorney General, local district attorney's office, state, county, or local law enforcement, bureaus of financial institutions, insurance, or consumer credit protection, the United States Attorney's Office, Federal Bureau of Investigation, United States Postal Inspector, Internal Revenue Service, Securities and Exchange Commission, Federal Trade Commission, Commodities Futures Trading Commission, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, U.S. Department of Labor. Bring concerns to us quickly. If it's a securities matter, we'll engage. If not, we'll make the right referral so the customer isn't left bouncing between offices. Thank you for being a frontline partner in protecting Mainers.
Hello again, I'm Jill Randall from Legal Services for Maine Elders, here to tell you about some community resources that you can share with an older adult with their consent. Legal Services for Maine Elders is one of those community resources. Because contacting us requires the older person's consent, since they would be our client, we need the request for help to come directly from them. You can help the person call our toll-free number, 1-800-750-5353. If you're with the older person, you can place the call on speakerphone, or if you're in different locations, you can make a conference call. Once contact is made, the older person can give us permission to speak with others as we begin gathering information. You can also help a customer contact their local area agency on aging. These agencies provide supports and services for older adults who have been financially exploited, abused, or neglected, and they also help reconnect those individuals with their community. Often, people who have been abused or exploited are isolated and have few supports in place. The local agency offers programs like Meals on Wheels, congregate dining, and educational activities that help older adults connect with others. Other programs, such as Money Minders, offer assistance that helps maintain independence. There are 5 area agencies divided by geography, but one number connects them all: 1-877-353-3771. With the older adult's consent, you can also help them contact sexual assault and domestic violence services. Research shows that it's rare for just one form of elder abuse to occur. We don't want to imagine older adults being physically or sexually abused, but we know it happens, and there are resources to help. Maine Sexual Assault Support Centers and Domestic Violence Resource Centers are here to provide help and support. For frontline reports, this graphic shows who to contact, depending on whether the customer shows signs of incapacity or dependency, and which community resources you can make a warm handoff referral to. If the customer shows signs of incapacity or dependency, contact Adult Protective Services. If there are no signs of incapacity or dependency, the Maine Office of Securities is available to assist. A warm handoff referral can also be made, with the customer's consent, to community resources, such as Legal Services for Maine Elders, the local area agency on aging, the domestic violence hotline, and the sexual assault hotline. Incidents of financial exploitation are increasing, and financial institutions have a unique role in stopping it. You know your customers, you know their habits, and you know when something seems off. In closing, I want to thank each of you for your part in helping to raise awareness, prevent, and respond to elder abuse. Together, we can make a real difference for Maine's older adults.